so I guess I should start at the beginning, huh? 3 years ago, I was just another PR girl with big dreams and a boyfriend who I thought was going to be my forever person. Michael and I met at a networking event in Boston. You know, one of those fancy hotel ballroom things where everyone's pretending they're not just there for the free appetizers. I was doing PR for a local tech startup, and he was finishing up his undergrad with dreams of Harvard Law. When he got that acceptance letter, y'all should have seen his face. Like a kid on Christmas morning who just got a PS5 and a puppy at the same time. We went out to this cute little Italian place in the North End to celebrate, and I still remember how he grabbed my hands across the table and said, "Jordan, this is it. This is our future." Our future. Those words hit different now. See, what Michael didn't mention was that his future at Harvard Law came with a $70K per year price tag. His parents were comfortably middle class, but definitely not write a check for Harvard rich, and his undergrad scholarships didn't carry over. Student loans would cover tuition, but not living expenses in Cambridge, which might as well be on Mars in terms of affordability. So there I was, 24 years old, with my tiny PR business just starting to take off, when Michael looked at me with those puppy dog eyes and said, "I might have to drop out before I even start." Looking back, the red flags were practically doing the YMCA dance in front of my face, but love makes you stupid, right? I did the math and figured if I took on more clients and maybe picked up some side gigs, we could make it work. "We're a team," I told him. "Your success is my success." Fast forward 3 years. I'm working my PR business during the day, bartending at this swanky downtown spot 3 nights a week, and doing freelance social media management on weekends. Meanwhile, Michael's thriving at Harvard, making connections with future Supreme Court justices and Fortune 500 lawyers while I'm mixing martinis for finance bros who can't bother to remember my name. But I pushed through because I believed in us. I paid for his apartment in Cambridge because it was closer to the library. I bought his textbooks because they were investments in our future. I even funded networking events and dinners with professors because that's how you get ahead. In law, my social life? Non-existent. My savings? What savings? My health? Let's just say the barista at the Dunkin' near my apartment started calling my order the Jordan Special, a venti cold brew with an extra shot and a Red Bull chaser. Real healthy, I know. Graduation day finally arrived and I was beyond excited. All the sacrifice was about to pay off. I splurged on a new dress from Nordstrom that made me feel like $1,000,000, got my hair done at Dry Bar, the works. I wanted to look perfect standing next to my man when he got that diploma. The ceremony was beautiful, all those future lawyers in their caps and gowns, proud families everywhere. I sat with Michael's parents, who kept thanking me for supporting their son through this journey. If only they knew how literal that support was. After the ceremony, Michael hugged his parents, posed for pictures, and then asked if he could talk to me privately. My naive self thought maybe he was going to propose. Spoiler alert, he wasn't. We walked to this little garden area behind the law building, and he turned to me with this look I'd never seen before. All business, like I was a client he was about to give bad news to. "Jordan," he said, "these past 3 years have been transformative for me." I nodded, thinking he was about to thank me for all my support. Wrong again. "I've accepted an associate position at Harrison & Mills," he continued. This was big news. They were one of the most prestigious firms in Boston. "And I've been doing a lot of thinking about my future, my career trajectory." That's when he dropped the bomb. The partners at H&M have certain expectations for their associates. The firm culture values certain types of connections. What I'm trying to say is, I need someone more successful for my career right now. Someone who moves in the right circles. I stood there, dress blowing in the breeze, as 3 years of my life went up in smoke. He kept talking about mutual growth and different paths and some other garbage, but all I could think about was how I'd worked 3 jobs to put this man through Harvard, and now I wasn't good enough to stand beside him. "Is there someone else?" I finally asked. He had the decency to look uncomfortable. "Vanessa Mills. Her father is a senior partner." Of course, nothing says ethical future lawyer like dating the boss's daughter. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just nodded, said, "Congratulations on your graduation," and walked away. The next day, I cleared his stuff out of my apartment, boxed it up, and had it delivered to his new place. Then I blocked his number, deleted his emails, and unfollowed him on every social platform known to mankind. Clean break, like ripping off a Band-Aid. And now I'm focusing on me. I've cut back to just my PR business, which is actually growing faster without Michael draining my time and resources. I've started rock climbing at Brooklyn Boulders and joined a book club. I'm sleeping more than 4 hours a night. Revolutionary, I know. But the best part? Last week I landed the biggest client of my career, Harrington Global Industries. The Robert Harrington, tech billionaire and philanthropist, wants my little agency to handle his complete corporate rebrand ahead of some major lawsuit. So yeah, that's where I'm at now. Single, focused, and finally putting myself first. It's scary, but also freeing. Like I've been carrying this massive backpack for years and suddenly it's gone. My mom says I'm glowing again. My friends say they've got their Jordan back. And Michael? Well, I heard he's killing it at Harrison and Mills. Good for him, I guess. I genuinely hope his career trajectory is worth what he lost. But somehow I doubt. It updated. It's been about 4 months since my last update, and wow, what a roller coaster it's been, you guys. First off, thank you for all the supportive comments. Reading them during my lunch breaks literally got me through some tough days, so let me catch you up. After landing the Harrington account, my small PR firm went from Jordan's little side hustle to, wait, they represent Woo, practically overnight. When Robert Harrington walks into a room, people notice, and when he starts mentioning your company's name, your phone does not stop ringing. The first time I met Robert was intimidating as heck. His executive assistant had scheduled our meeting at his waterfront office in the Seaport District. You know, one of those glass and steel buildings where even the lobby makes you feel underdressed. I showed up 30 minutes early, rocking my power suit from Banana Republic and clutching my presentation materials like they were a life raft. He's going to eat me alive, I whispered to myself in the elevator mirror, giving myself a final once-over. But here's the thing about Robert Harrington that the business magazines don't tell you. The guy is surprisingly down to earth for someone worth billions. When I walked into his office expecting some formal boardroom situation, I found him sitting on a couch, shoes off, eating Chipotle directly from the bowl. Jordan, come in. Sorry about the casual lunch setup. Day's been back to back, he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. Want a burrito? I always order extra. That first meeting was supposed to be 30 minutes. We talked for 3 hours. Turns out Robert wasn't just looking for someone to polish his company's image ahead of this massive patent lawsuit. He wanted someone who could cut through the his words, and help him connect authentically with the public. I'm tired of sounding like a press release, he told me. I want people to know the real Harrington Global, not some sanitized corporate version. By the end of our marathon meeting, I'd not only secured the biggest contract of my career, but had also somehow agreed to handle his personal PR as well. The retainer he offered was more than I'd made in the entire previous year. When my accountant saw the numbers, she actually called to ask if there was a decimal point error. Nope, I told her, still in disbelief myself. That's the real number. With the Harrington account, I could finally expand my business. I leased a real office in Back Bay. Nothing fancy, but it had windows and didn't double as my living room, which was a major upgrade. I hired 2 full-time employees and a handful of freelancers. For the first time, I could be selective about which clients I took on. The best part? No more bartending shifts, no more social media side gigs. I was sleeping regular human hours, and even joined ClassPass. My friends were shocked when I actually showed up for brunch 3 Sundays in a row. Who are you, and what have you done with the real Jordan? My best friend Alyssa joked as I ordered a mimosa instead of my usual triple espresso. Life was finally looking up. Then, about 2 months into the Harrington project, the universe decided to test me. I was at Tata Bakery grabbing coffee before heading to the office when I heard that all-too-familiar voice. Jordan, is that you? I turned around slowly, my Americano nearly slipping from my grip. Michael. Standing there in a perfectly tailored suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent, looking annoyingly handsome and slightly uncertain. Michael, I said, aiming for cool detachment but probably landing closer to awkward surprise. Hey, you look great, he said, eyes taking in my professional outfit, styled hair, and the general absence of the exhausted zombie look I'd sported throughout his law school years. Thanks, I replied, already edging toward the door. Good to see you. I've got to run. Wait, he called after me. Can we talk sometime? Get coffee or lunch, maybe? I gave him my new business card, partly because I wanted a quick escape route, and partly because I knew seeing Jordan Chen, founder and CEO on heavy cardstock, would mess with his head. Email my assistant to set something up, I said, channeling every boss lady vibe I could muster. I'm pretty booked these days. Then I walked out, waited until I was around the corner, and did a silent victory dance that probably made me look like I was having a medical episode. 3 years of sacrifice, 3 jobs, countless sleepless nights, and now I was the one pretty booked these days. The petty satisfaction was sweeter than any tot pastry. I had zero intention of actually meeting up with Michael, but fate had other plans. The following week, I was presenting our PR strategy to Robert Harrington and his legal team when the conference room door opened, and in walked Michael, looking as shocked to see me as I was to see him. Sorry I'm late, he mumbled, sliding into one of the empty chairs. Court ran long. Robert glanced between us. Do you two know each other? Before I could answer, Michael jumped in. We're old friends, he said smoothly. Jordan and I go way back. Friends, right. Because friends totally work 3 jobs to put other friends through Harvard Law and then get dumped on graduation day. I nodded tightly and continued my presentation, professional to the core. But inside, total meltdown. What was Michael doing here? Since when did he work with Harrington Global? After the meeting, Robert pulled me aside. Everything okay? You seemed tense after Wallace arrived. Wallace? I asked, confused. Michael. Wallace, Robert clarified. New associate from Harrison and Mills. The firm just assigned him to our case. The world has a sick sense of humor, I swear. Of all the lawyers in Boston, my ex had to be assigned to my biggest client's case. Over the next few weeks, Michael emailed me constantly, first about catching up, then about coordinating on the Harrington case, and finally just straight up apologizing for how things ended. Each time, I either ignored him or sent brief professional responses. But then came the charity gala. Robert Harrington was being honored for his foundation's work on educational equity, and as his PR person, I was required to attend. The event was at the Boston Harbor Hotel, all black tie and champagne fountains. I wore a red dress I'd been saving for a special occasion, and walked in feeling pretty confident. Until I saw Michael across the room, standing next to a tall blonde, who I immediately knew was Vanessa Mills. They looked like they'd stepped off a wedding cake topper. Perfect. Polished, privileged, I beelined for the bar, ordered a gin and tonic, and was preparing for an evening of strategic avoidance when Robert appeared at my side. Jordan, there you are. Come meet some people. The some people turned out to include Michael and Vanessa, because of course they did. Up close, Vanessa was even more intimidatingly perfect, with the kind of blowout that never encounters humidity and a diamond tennis bracelet that probably cost more than my car. Michael's been telling me how you two know each other, Robert said, an amused twinkle in his eye that made me wonder exactly what Michael had shared. Oh? I sipped my drink, staring Michael down over the rim of my glass. He mentioned you were supportive during his law school years, Robert continued. Supportive. What a bland, inadequate word for what I'd done. That's one way to put it, I said lightly. The conversation mercifully moved on to the lawsuit, and I seized the first opportunity to excuse myself. As I walked away, I felt Michael's eyes on me, but I didn't look back. Later that night, as I was waiting for my Uber outside, Michael appeared beside me alone. Where's Vanessa? I asked, not bothering to hide my frostiness. She left early, he said. Headache. We stood in awkward silence for a moment before he spoke again. I didn't know you were working with Harrington, he said. That's impressive. Thanks, I replied flatly. Jordan, about what happened at graduation? Don't. I cut him off. It's ancient history. Is it? He asked quietly. Because it doesn't feel like it. My Uber pulled up, saving me from having to respond. As I opened the car door, Michael called after me. You've changed, he said. I looked back at him, standing there in his expensive suit, looking somehow less sure of himself than I'd ever seen him. No, I replied. I've always been this person. You just couldn't see it through your own ambition. The next morning, I received an email from Michael asking to meet for coffee, to discuss the Harrington case. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him at Thinking Cup near the Common. He was already there when I arrived, 2 coffees on the table, 1 black, his, and 1 oat milk latte with an extra shot, mine. The fact that he still remembered my coffee order after all this time was irritating. Thanks for meeting me, he said as I sat down. What's up with the case? I asked, bypassing small talk. The case is fine, he admitted. That was just an excuse to see you. I nearly got up and left right then, but curiosity kept me in my seat. Why? Because I made a mistake, he said, looking me straight in the eyes. A huge, unforgivable mistake. I'd imagined this moment during countless sleepless nights after our breakup, Michael realizing what he'd lost, begging for forgiveness. In my fantasies, I'd either told him off spectacularly or taken him back in some romantic reunion scene. Reality was messier. Sitting across from him in that crowded coffee shop, I felt nothing. No anger, no joy, no vindication. Just emptiness, where passionate emotions used to live. Michael, I said carefully, what exactly do you want from me? He reached across the table, not quite touching my hand. I want another chance. These past months with Vanessa, it's not real. It's all networking and family connections and law firm politics. What we had was real. What we had, I corrected, him, was me supporting your dreams while putting mine on hold. I know, he said quickly. And I was selfish and stupid. But seeing you now, how successful you've become, working with someone like Harrington, it's made me realize what I threw away. And there it was. Not, I miss who you are, but I'm impressed by what you've achieved. Even his apology was about status. I stood up, gathering my things. You didn't throw anything away, Michael. You made a calculated decision based on what you thought would advance your career. And now you're making another one. As I walked out, he called after me. Robert Harrington is considering switching law firms. Did you know that? I stopped, turned slowly. Harrison and Mills is at the top of his list, Michael continued. And guess who's being considered to lead his account team? The implications were clear. Michael thought his connection to me could help him land the Harrington account at his firm. After everything, he was still trying to use me as a stepping stone. Good luck with that, I said, and walked out for real this time. That evening, I had dinner scheduled with Robert to discuss upcoming media strategy. Over pasta at Sorellina, he casually mentioned, I hear you have history with young Wallace at Harrison and Mills. My fork paused halfway to my mouth. Who told you that? Robert shrugged. He did. Came to my office this morning singing your praises. Said you two were quite serious before he made the biggest mistake of his life letting you go. I nearly choked on my wine. He said that to you? Why? I think, Robert said, dabbing his mouth with his napkin. He's under the impression I'm considering moving our business to his firm, and that his connection to you might work in his favor. The audacity was breathtaking. I set down my fork and told Robert everything. The 3 jobs, the financial support, the graduation day dumping. By the time I finished, he was shaking his head in disbelief. You know, Robert said thoughtfully, I didn't get where I am by letting opportunists prosper. 2 days later, Michael texted me asking to meet for dinner, to discuss an exciting development. I agreed to meet him at Eastern Standard, curious about what he thought was happening. When I arrived, he was already seated at a corner table looking triumphant. He stood as I approached, pulling out my chair with exaggerated chivalry. You're looking at Harrison and Mills's newest junior partner track associate, he announced as soon as I sat down. Congratulations, I said, genuinely surprised. That's unusually fast. It's conditional, he explained, practically glowing with self-satisfaction. Based on me bringing in the Harrington account, which is practically a done deal, according to the senior partners. I blinked, confused. What makes them so confident? Connections? He said with a wink. Turns out my connection to you is quite valuable after all. The senior partners were impressed when they heard how close we are. Were, I corrected. How close we were. His smile dimmed slightly. Well, about that. I've been thinking a lot about us, Jordan. About what I threw away. Vanessa and I broke up last week. I'm sorry to hear that, I said automatically. Don't be, he replied, reaching for my hand across the table. This time, he actually grabbed it before I could pull away. It's opened the door for us to try again. You and me, power, couple, your PR firm, my legal career. We could be unstoppable together. I gently extricated my hand from his. Michael, what exactly did Robert tell you about his plans to switch law firms? Just that he was strongly considering Harrison and Mills, and that our connection was a point in the firm's favor. He looked so confident, so certain. See, I said, taking a sip of water to hide my expression. And what about us? You really think we can just pick up where we left off? Not where we left off, he corrected quickly, but a fresh start. You're different now, established, successful. We're equals this time. And there it was again. I wasn't worthy when I was working 3 jobs to support him, but now that I had a successful business and connections he wanted, suddenly I was good enough. I was saved from responding by the arrival of an unexpected guest at our table. Jordan, I thought that was you, came a warm, familiar voice. I looked up to see James Chen, no relation despite the shared last name, Harrington Global's chief legal counsel and, for the past month, my boyfriend. The look on Michael's face, as I introduced them, was worth every penny I'd ever spent on his law school education. Final update. You guys asked for a final update, so here it is. It's been about 2 months since the dinner from hell with Michael, and life has settled into a pretty sweet routine. After James showed up at Eastern Standard that night, Michael excused himself to take an important call and never came back to the table. James and I enjoyed a lovely dinner, though I did have to explain the whole bizarre situation. So he thought Harrington was moving their business to his firm? James asked, looking confused. That's interesting, considering we just renewed our contract with Webster and Associates for the next 3 years. Turns out, Robert Harrington had never had any intention of switching law firms. He'd simply let Michael believe what he wanted to believe, just to see how the situation would play out. Classic Robert move. The next day, Michael emailed me a lengthy apology that managed to both say sorry and blame me for misunderstanding his intentions. I didn't bother responding. A week later, heard through the grapevine that he'd been removed from the Harrington case entirely and reassigned to the firm's least glamorous client, a chain of discount furniture stores being sued for false advertising. Karma's a trip, ain't it? As for me and James, things are going amazingly well. He's everything Michael wasn't: supportive, kind, and actually interested in my career beyond how it might benefit him. Last weekend, he helped me move into my new apartment in Beacon Hill, a place I can actually afford now thanks to the Harrington contract and 3 other major clients who've signed on since. Oh, and speaking of Robert Harrington, the lawsuit was settled out of court last month, and Harrington Global's stock price hit an all-time high. Robert took the entire PR team, all 5 of us now, to dinner at Oya to celebrate and announced he's expanding our contract to include his new tech foundation. So that's where things stand. My business is thriving, my relationship is healthy, and for the first time in years, I'm not exhausted all the time. No more triple shift days, no more Red Bull breakfasts, no more putting myself last. Sometimes I think about sending Michael a thank you note. If he hadn't dumped me on his graduation day, I might still be working myself to death for someone else's dreams instead of building my own. But then again, some things are better left unsaid. I'll just keep living my best life instead. That's thanks enough.